He didn't know. In her culture, giving water meant eternal marriage. The desert stretched endlessly, its golden dunes shimmering beneath the merciless sun. Heat waves shimmered above cracked stones, and the air trembled with silence broken only by the wind dragging sand across the wasteland. It was Arizona, land of mirages, rattlesnakes, and secrets buried deeper than anyone cared to admit. John Miller tightened the bandana around his neck, his canteen nearly empty. He had been hiking off the marked trail, too stubborn to turn back, too curious to stop. He wasn't looking for adventure. He was looking for quiet, a silence big enough to drown out the echoes of his life in the city. But the desert had other plans. At first, he thought it was a mirage. A figure collapsed in the sand, motionless beneath the blistering sky. But as he got closer, his steps crunching on the burning earth, he realized it wasn't his mind playing tricks. It was her. She lay on her side, her skin a soft, luminous blue that reflected the sunlight in a way no human skin ever could. Her hair, long and disheveled, was the color of wheat, blonde, yet shimmering like strands of light. She was dressed in something torn and metallic, a fabric that seemed woven out of starlight but was ripped and dusty now. For a moment, John froze. He was a rational man, not prone to believing in fairy tales. But there she was, undeniably real, her lips cracked, her eyes closed, her body trembling as if each breath were a battle. He crouched beside her, instinct overpowering hesitation. "Hey, can you hear me?" His voice cracked with both fear and urgency. Her eyelids fluttered open, and then he saw them, eyes unlike any he had ever seen. Not green, not blue, not hazel, but a swirling mixture of all of them, shifting like galaxies trapped inside her gaze. Her lips moved, a whisper, broken, almost lost to the wind. "Water." John didn't hesitate. He unscrewed his canteen and pressed it gently to her lips. She drank slowly, greedily, drops running down her chin, until she coughed and gasped for air. But in her eyes, something changed. The desperation softened, replaced by a look he couldn't quite understand. When she spoke again, her voice carried a strange accent, soft but firm. "Now, I am yours." John blinked. "What?" She touched her chest with trembling fingers, then touched his hand still holding the canteen. Her eyes never left his. "Water is life. In my world, when one gives water, it means forever. I belong to you." The words hung heavy in the dry desert air, more suffocating than the heat itself. John tried to laugh, though his throat was dry. "Look, I don't know what you mean, but you don't belong to anyone. I just—" Her grip tightened. Despite her exhaustion, her strength surprised him. "No, you gave me life. Our bond is sealed." He pulled back slightly, unease crawling down his spine. The desert around them felt suddenly too still, too quiet. Above them, a hawk circled lazily, as if watching the beginning of something it could not understand. John's mind raced. Who was she? Where'd she come from? He had read conspiracy theories, heard whispers about lights in the desert skies, but none of it had prepared him for this. She wasn't just different. She was otherworldly, and yet vulnerable. Her breathing steadied, her skin no longer as pale. The water had given her strength, but her eyes stayed fixed on him with an intensity that felt both unsettling and magnetic. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then whispered, "Serena." The name tasted strange in his mouth, foreign yet beautiful. He repeated it slowly. "Serena." A faint smile touched her lips. It was the first time he saw her face soften from desperation into something almost human. Relief, gratitude, maybe even warmth. The desert sun lowered slightly, shadows stretching across the dunes. John glanced around, realizing he couldn't just leave her there. She wouldn't survive another hour alone in this wasteland. But he also knew that taking her with him wasn't just about survival anymore. Something irreversible had already begun. He didn't know it yet, but the simple act of offering water had tied him to her fate and her world in ways he could never escape. As they sat together in the endless silence, her hand still holding his, he felt the weight of her words settling in. "Now, I am yours." And in that moment, the desert no longer felt empty. It felt like the beginning of something that could burn brighter, and more dangerously than the sun itself. The desert was quiet, but John couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The heat still pressed down on him. The silence still hummed, but under it all was a tension, like the air just before a thunderstorm. Serena's eyes followed him as he packed his bag, as if she were studying every movement. He could still feel the weight of her hand on his, the promise, or curse, of the bond she believed they now shared. "We need to get out of here," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Serena tilted her head, her blonde hair glinting under the sun. "You are leading now. I will follow." The words felt strange, almost ritualistic, as if she had given him a role he never asked for. He sighed, slung the strap of his canteen over his shoulder, and offered her his arm. She hesitated for just a moment before placing her hand in his. Her fingers cooled despite the heat. They walked. Sand crunched beneath their boots, his worn and dusty, her some metallic weave half shredded from her fall. John's throat ached with thirst. He had given her the last of his water, and every step reminded him of that sacrifice. But he couldn't regret it. She was alive because of him. Still, his rational mind screamed at him. "What the hell are you doing, Miller? You find an alien in the middle of the desert and decide to play Good Samaritan? What if someone sees her? What if she's dangerous?" He stole a glance at her, blue skin catching the light, eyes swirling like galaxies, hair like sunlight tangled by the wind. Dangerous? Maybe, but not in the way his instincts feared. After an hour, his legs burned and sweat slicked his back. Serena, despite her weakened state, seemed to walk with increasing steadiness. Every now and then, she would tilt her face toward the horizon as if listening to something far away. Finally, John broke the silence. "So, where are you from?" Serena's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Far, beyond your skies. My people, we came for knowledge, for water." Her voice faltered. "But we were hunted. I fell." John frowned. "Hunted? By who?" Her gaze darkened, the swirling colors in her eyes deepening into something stormy. "Not all who travel the stars come in peace. There are those who see worlds as fuel. My kind is prey to them." She touched the torn fabric of her clothing, a scar of some battle he couldn't imagine. "They followed us." A chill prickled the back of his neck. He scanned the sky automatically, half expecting to see something, ships, shadows, anything. But the desert remained mercilessly empty. "Look," he said carefully, "if what you're saying is true, then you're not safe here. You're not safe anywhere out in the open." She looked at him, steady, unwavering. "I'm safe with you. You gave water. You are my bond." John nearly groaned. That's not how this works here." But she only tilted her head again, studying him, as if he were the one who didn't understand the rules. They walked on in silence until the horizon shimmered with the faintest hope, the outline of an abandoned gas station, a relic swallowed by time. Its roof sagged, its pumps rusted into skeletons, but the cracked walls promised shade. John pushed open the door, the hinges screaming, and guided Serena inside. Dust motes swirled in the slanted light. Oldkins lay scattered across the floor, and graffiti scarred the walls. It was shelter, at least. Serena moved to the far wall and sat gracefully despite her exhaustion, her eyes following him with quiet intensity. He tried not to meet her gaze as he rummaged through his pack. Empty. Not a drop of water left. He cursed under his breath. "You gave me what you had," she said softly, as if reading his thoughts. "Now I must give to you." He looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Her fingers traced a pattern in the dust, glowing faintly blue. The symbol shimmered for a heartbeat before fading. "My people, we share energy. Not like your food or water. Something deeper. But it is not without cost." Before he could ask what that meant, a noise outside snapped his head around. A low hum. Not the wind, not an engine. Something alien, vibrating against his ribs. Serena's eyes widened. "They found me." John froze. "Who?" Her voice dropped to a whisper, heavy with fear. "Hunters." The hum grew louder, closer, until the cracked windows rattled. John's pulse pounded. He crouched, peering through a gap in the wall. At first, he saw nothing but sand swirling in the distance. Then shapes. 3 figures gliding just above the dunes, cloaked in metallic armor that shimmered like liquid silver. They moved with predatory grace, scanning, searching. John's gut clenched. These weren't soldiers. They were predators. Serenia stood, her body tense, her eyes burning. If they see me, they will not stop until you are dead too. Great, John muttered. Exactly what I needed today. He pulled back from the window, his heart hammering. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was just a guy with a beat-up backpack and no plan. But now, with Serenia standing in the shadows, trembling yet fierce, he realized he had a choice. Run and save himself, or stand by the alien woman who believed they were bound by something stronger than fear. The hum deepened. Sand whipped against the station walls. The hunters were closing in. John clenched his fists. He had no weapons, no water, no chance in hell. But as his gaze locked with Serenia's, something in her eyes anchored him. A promise. A bond he hadn't asked for, but one he couldn't abandon. And for the first time, he understood the danger wasn't just hers anymore. It was his too. The desert outside trembled with the approach of the hunters. And inside the broken station, two strangers, one human, one alien, prepared for the storm about to crash down on them. The hum outside swelled until the broken windows vibrated, dust shaking loose from the rafters. John crouched low, his pulse hammering in his ears. Serenia's gaze never left the horizon, her posture sharpened like a blade about to be drawn. "They're close," she whispered, voice steady despite the dread in her eyes. John licked his lips, wishing for water, for a gun, for anything other than empty hands. "What do they want from you?" Her reply was immediate. "Me and my kind. To them, we are resources to be harvested, nothing more." She lifted her chin. "If they take me, they will not leave you alive. You gave water. You're a part of me now. That means you're a target." John pressed his back against the wall, muttering a curse. He had no training for this, no plan. But leaving her wasn't an option. Not after what he'd seen in her eyes, not after the bond she believed they shared. The hum stopped. Silence. Then, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, crunching against sand and gravel. John risked a glance through the cracked window. 3 figures stood just outside the gas station, their bodies encased in armor that gleamed like molten silver. They had no visible faces, only smooth helmets that reflected the desert sun. Each carried a weapon that looked grown rather than built, organic shapes pulsing faintly with light. One of them raised a device, scanning the air. A low, mechanical voice reverberated. "Target detected." John's stomach dropped. Serenia gripped his arm. Her touch was colder now, almost electric. "You must choose. Hide, and I draw them away. Or stand with me." John stared at her. She was offering herself up, ready to sacrifice herself to keep him safe. Something inside him rebelled against the thought. He shook his head. "No way. I'm not letting you walk into that alone." Her eyes widened, galaxies swirling faster within them. For the first time, her composure cracked into something raw. "Then hold fast. This will not be easy." The station door exploded inward. Splinters of wood and rusted metal flew as the first hunter stepped inside, weapon glowing with eerie blue light. The second and third followed, their movements silent, precise. John ducked behind a collapsed shelf as the hunters fanned out. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. He had nothing, no weapon, no shield, just instinct screaming at him to run. Then Serenia moved. She stepped forward into the shaft of sunlight spilling through the broken roof, her blue skin glowing against the shadows. Her voice rang out, firm and commanding. "You will not take me." The hunters froze for a split second, their helmets tilting as if analyzing her. Then the lead one lifted its weapon. A surge of energy burst through the air. Only Serenia raised her hand. A wave of shimmering force erupted from her palm, colliding with the blast. The energy scattered into sparks, searing the walls. John's jaw dropped. She wasn't defenseless, but the effort drained her. She staggered, breathing hard, her glow dimming. "Move," she shouted at him. Adrenaline slammed into John's veins. He grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor and lunged at the nearest hunter. It was suicide, he knew it, but he swung with every ounce of desperation in his body. The pipe connected with the hunter's weapon, knocking it aside. The alien staggered, more surprised than hurt. John's arm shook from the impact. The second hunter turned toward him, weapon charging with a high-pitched whine. Before it could fire, Serena's voice cut through the chaos, raw and desperate. "John!" Light burst from her body, a pulse that slammed into the hunters like a shockwave. They were thrown backward, crashing into the broken shelves. The walls rattled, dust cascading from the ceiling. John staggered, shielding his eyes from the brilliance. When it faded, Serena collapsed to her knees, trembling, her glow nearly gone. "Don't let them," she whispered. The hunters were already recovering, their armor sparking but not broken. One rose to its feet, turning its faceless helmet toward John. He realized, with sick clarity, that they weren't going to stop. Not until she was taken. Not until he was dead. He gripped the pipe tighter, though his hands shook. He had nothing else. No plan, but to fight until he couldn't. The first hunter advanced, weapon raised again. And in that moment, John made a choice. Not out of logic, not out of survival, but out of the bond Serena had given him. He wasn't going to abandon her, even if it killed him. With a roar that surprised even himself, he charged. The hunter swung its weapon, but John ducked, driving the pipe into its side. Sparks erupted. The alien staggered again, clearly unaccustomed to such reckless, brute force. "Serena!" he shouted, breath ragged. "Get up. We're not done yet." Her eyes fluttered open, faint light returning. She saw him, ordinary, weaponless John Miller, standing against creatures far beyond his world. Something inside her reignited. She rose, swaying but defiant. Energy built in her palms again, weaker than before but focused like a blade. Together, man and alien stood back to back in the ruins of the gas station, surrounded by hunters closing in from every side. The desert sun bled through the cracks in the roof, casting long shadows across the wreckage. The fight was only beginning, and John knew, with bone-deep certainty, that whatever happened next would change him forever. The gas station shuddered as another blast tore through its walls. Shards of plaster rained down, the roof sagging dangerously. John swung the pipe again, the sound of metal against alien armor ringing in his ears. But it wasn't enough. The hunters advanced with inhuman patience, their movements deliberate, precise. Each time John struck one aside, the others closed in. Their weapons pulsed with energy, casting sickly blue light across the wreckage. Serena's breathing was ragged. She pressed one palm against her chest, the glow that once radiated from her body flickering like a dying flame. "I cannot hold them much longer," she whispered. John planted his feet, pipe clutched tight. Sweat burned his eyes, his lungs clawing for air. "Then we don't hold them," he growled. "We end this." The word surprised even him. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't a hero. But in that moment, with the heat of the desert pressing in and Serena's fragile life tethered to his, he felt something ignite. A refusal to let this end here. Not like this. The lead hunter raised its weapon, charging with a rising whine. John saw the glow intensify, aimed squarely at Serena. Without thinking, he threw himself between them. The blast struck. It wasn't fire or bullets. It was energy, pure and searing, slamming into his chest. The force hurled him backward, crashing him through a shelf. Pain exploded through his ribs. He gasped, choking, the world tilting in and out of focus. Serena screamed, a sound that shook the air. Her body erupted with light. Not the flickering glow of before, but a blinding surge that swallowed the room. The hunters staggered, their armor sparking, their weapons flickering dead. John lay crumpled on the ground, pain tearing through every nerve. He tried to rise, but his body refused. His vision blurred, until Serena dropped beside him, cradling his head in trembling hands. "No." Her voice broke, tears cutting paths through the dust on her cheeks. "You gave water. You gave yourself. You cannot leave me." Her hands pressed against his wound. Her glow poured into him, warmth surging through his broken chest. Pain dulled, replaced by a strange humming deep in his bones. His heart hammered, then steadied. John gasped, dragging in a ragged breath. His eyes snapped open. The world felt different, sharper, heavier, alive with energy he couldn't name. Serena's face hovered over his, her eyes wide with relief. "I share the bond." she whispered. Now my life is yours, and yours is mine. John barely had time to process her words before the hunters rose again. Damaged, sparking, but not defeated. The lead one lifted its weapon, the faint hum rebuilding. Something inside John shifted. His body pulsed with unfamiliar power, faint blue light flickering beneath his skin. He staggered to his feet, pipe still in hand, but now it glowed faintly where his grip met the metal, as though charged by something flowing through him. The hunter fired. John swung. The pipe caught the blast midair, redirecting it into the wall. The gas station shook, half its roof collapsing. Dust and fire rained down. He stared at the weapon in his hands, then at Serena, who was watching him with a mix of awe and fear. You carry my energy now, she breathed. You fight as one of us. John's grip tightened. The pain in his chest had dulled into fire, and beneath it pulsed something fierce, something alive. He felt invincible, if only for a moment. The hunters regrouped, circling. Their faceless helmets glinted in the dim light, their movements more cautious now. They recognized the change. John bared his teeth, a grim smile twisting across his face. Come on, then. The second hunter lunged. John met it head-on, pipe glowing brighter as it connected with the alien's chest. The armor cracked with a sound like shattering glass. The creature reeled backward, sparks spilling from its core. Serena raised her hand, sending a thin beam of light through the opening in its armor. The hunter collapsed, lifeless, into the dust. For the first time, victory felt possible. But the lead hunter roared, an electronic screech that rattled the walls. Its armor shifted, unfolding into jagged blades that glowed with deadly energy. This was no longer a hunt. It was execution. The remaining two advanced together. John fought with everything he had. The pipe rang against armor, each strike fueled by the strange energy burning inside him. Serena stood at his back, light flashing from her hands. Still, the hunters pressed closer. Blow after blow rained down. Sparks flew. Walls cracked. And then, the roof gave way. The entire structure groaned before collapsing inward. Wood and rusted steel crashed around them. John grabbed Serena, shielding her with his body as debris thundered down. When the dust cleared, silence reigned. The hunters were gone, buried, perhaps, or retreated. But John and Serena stood in the ruins, bruised, bleeding alive. Serena touched his chest with a blast that struck him. Her fingers traced the faint glow beneath his skin. The bond has changed you, she whispered. You will never be only human again. John met her gaze, heart pounding. Then we're in this together, whatever it means. For the first time, her lips curved into something like a true smile. Together, above them, the sky burned crimson with the setting sun. The desert stretched endless and silent. But now John knew it was no longer empty. This was the beginning of something far larger, far more dangerous than anything he had imagined. And as the horizon swallowed the last of the light, he understood the truth. There was no going back. If you've ever rooted for an impossible love, hit that subscribe button. There are many more stories like this waiting for you. The ruins of the gas station smoldered in silence, smoke curling into the desert sky. The air tasted of ash and sand. John leaned heavily against a fractured beam, chest heaving, body trembling not only from exhaustion, but from something deeper, something unnatural thrumming in his veins. Serena knelt nearby, her hand pressed to the cracked floor as if feeling vibrations through the earth. Her skin, though smeared with soot and blood, still glowed faintly in the dying light. John pressed his palm against his chest. The wound from the hunter's blast was gone, sealed by her energy, but the faint blue glow beneath his skin pulsed like a second heartbeat. What the hell did you do to me? His voice was raw, breaking in the silence. Serena lifted her head slowly, eyes swirling galaxies of light. I saved you. Our bond was sealed when you gave me water. But when you stepped into the fire for me, I gave you part of myself. My life, my essence flows in you now. John shook his head, staggering to his feet. That's not possible. People don't just glow. Her lips curved, tired but certain. You are no longer only a man. You are more than human. And less. The words sent a chill down his spine. He clenched his fists, staring at the faint blue light rippling across the veins in his forearms. It didn't feel like power. It felt like a storm trapped inside his body, waiting to break him apart. "Is this permanent?" he asked quietly. Her silence was answer enough. The weight of it sank in. He wasn't just in over his head. He was changing, piece by piece, into something he couldn't name. Serena rose, crossing the room with measured grace despite her fatigue. She touched his arm gently, and he resisted the urge to pull away. "Do not fear it. Where I come from, the bond is sacred. It is survival. Alone we fall. Together, we endure." Her words were soothing, but they didn't erase the fear gnawing at him. Endure what? The sun dipped below the horizon, shadows swallowing the desert. Coyotes howled in the distance. John knew they couldn't stay here. The ruins would draw attention, maybe even more hunters. "We need to move," he said firmly. "If those things survived under the rubble, they'll be back. And if not them, somebody else will come looking once they see the smoke." Serena nodded, though her shoulders sagged. "You lead. I follow." The words struck him again, heavy with meaning. She had said them before, but now, after everything, they felt different, as if she had surrendered not just her safety, but her destiny, into his hands. They set out into the night. The desert air cooled sharply, wind cutting across the dunes. Stars spilled across the sky, vast and merciless. John trudged forward, pipe still clutched in his hand. Each step sent shivers through his body, the glow under his skin pulsing stronger with every mile. He tried to ignore it, but the more he fought, the clearer it became. He could hear things he shouldn't. The whisper of the wind carried more than sand. It carried vibrations, distant movements, subtle rhythms hidden in the night. His senses were sharpening, expanding, reshaping him into something not entirely human. Serena watched him quietly as they walked. Finally, she spoke. "The change begins quickly. Your body fights it, but it cannot undo what is done. Soon, you will hear the stars themselves." John almost laughed, bitter, broken. "Great, just what I needed." Voices from outer space in my head. Her expression softened. "Do not mock what you do not yet understand. My people live in harmony with the currents of life that run between worlds. Now you will too, but it will cost you." That word again. Cost. He stopped in the sand, turning to face her. "What kind of cost, Serena? You keep saying that. What happens to me?" She held his gaze, the galaxies in her eyes flickering with sorrow. "Part of you will fade. The human you were will not remain whole. But the bond ensures survival, yours and mine. You may resist it, but you cannot escape it." His breath caught. "So what? You're saying I'm losing myself, that I'm not even me anymore?" Her silence confirmed it. For a long moment, the desert swallowed their words. The stars glittered coldly overhead, indifferent to the turmoil below. Finally, John turned away, forcing his legs to keep moving. "Then I guess I don't have a choice, do I?" Serena followed, her voice soft, almost mournful. "No, neither of us does." Hours passed. The moon climbed high, casting silver light across the dunes. John's body burned with exhaustion, but his senses kept him sharp, too sharp. He could hear the shifting of sand far beyond sight, the faint rustle of wings miles above. Every sound was amplified, overwhelming. By the time they reached a dry ravine, John's head pounded with the weight of it. He stumbled, dropping the pipe, clutching his temples. "Stop," Serena commanded, catching him before he fell. "Breathe. You must not fight it." "I can't," his voice cracked. "It's too much. It's tearing me apart." She pulled him down into the sand, her hands pressing firmly against his chest. The glow from her palms spread into him, steadying the storm inside. His breathing slowed, his vision clearing. Her voice was calm, steady, as if reciting an ancient truth. "You gave me water, John Miller. You gave me life. Now I give you strength. But strength without control destroys. You must let it guide you, not resist it." John's chest rose and fell beneath her touch. Slowly, the storm quieted. When his eyes met hers again, he saw not just gratitude, but fear. Not fear of the hunters. Fear of him. "Serena," he whispered, realization dawning. "You didn't tell me everything, did you?" Her hand lingered over his heart. She hesitated, then lowered her gaze. "No, The admission hit like a blade. He sat up, shaking his head. What aren't you telling me? She looked at him then, her eyes glistening with starlight and sorrow. The bond, it does not end. Not in life. Not in death. What you carry now, you carry forever. There is no return to what you were. You and I, our fates are one. The weight of it settled on him, heavier than the desert night. John stared at the endless dunes stretching into darkness, the horizon unreachable. For the first time, he understood the truth. His life wasn't his anymore. And yet, when Serena's hand slipped quietly into his, her fingers cool and steady, he didn't pull away. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was duty, or maybe, just maybe, it was something else. Above them, the stars burned silently, indifferent witnesses to the bond that had changed everything. The desert night stretched cold and endless, a black ocean scattered with stars. John sat at the edge of the ravine, arms wrapped around his knees, watching the horizon as if something might rise from it at any moment. Every sound sharpened against his ears, the scrape of a lizard on stone, the distant cry of an owl, even the faint shifting of Serena's breathing behind him. He should have felt safe, at least for now, but his body was alive with energy that wasn't his, a second pulse thrumming beneath his skin. He flexed his hand, watching the faint blue light ripple along his veins. Each flicker reminded him, "You're not the same anymore." Behind him, Serena stirred. "You should rest," she said softly, her voice carrying easily across the silence. John turned, half smiling despite his exhaustion. "You think I can sleep after everything that just happened?" She tilted her head, golden hair glinting in the moonlight. "Sleep is how we heal. Your body is learning. It will need more than your willpower to endure." He snorted, looking back at the dunes. "My whole life, I thought I was tough. Turns out, I'm just stubborn." Serena rose and came to sit beside him. Her presence radiated calm, though he could sense her exhaustion too. She settled gracefully, folding her legs beneath her. The faint glow of her skin lit the sand between them. "You are stubborn," she agreed, almost smiling. "But stubbornness is not weakness. It is why I'm still alive." Her words landed heavier than he expected. He looked at her profile, the sharp line of her cheekbone, the galaxies swirling faintly in her eyes. She didn't look like prey. She looked like something forged in struggle, carrying centuries of survival etched into her bones. And yet, she had needed him. John broke the silence. "Tell me about your world." Serena blinked, surprised. "What?" "Because if we're bound together forever, I should know what that means." For a moment, she was quiet, as if deciding whether to trust him. Then her voice softened. "My world is called Thalos. It is blue, bluer than your oceans, deeper than your skies. Our cities float above the water, connected by bridges of living crystal. Light moves through everything there, even us. We are born to share it, to carry each other's strength. Alone we fade." Her words painted pictures in his mind. Cities glowing across a vast ocean, people bound by threads of energy instead of blood. A world where loneliness didn't exist. He swallowed. "Sounds beautiful." Serena's expression dimmed. "It was, until the hunters came." She didn't say more, and John didn't press. The weight in her voice told him enough. Instead, he leaned back on his elbows, staring at the stars overhead. "Earth's not much better. We've got our own predators. They don't come from the stars, but they still take what they want. War, greed, power, different names for the same thing." Serena studied him quietly, her head tilting the way it always did when she was curious. "You speak of your people with sorrow." He let out a short laugh, humorless. "You spend enough years watching the worst in people. You stop expecting the best." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Serena reached out, her hand hovering before she rested it lightly on his wrist. Her skin was cool, the faint glow under her touch resonating with the glow in his veins. "Yet you gave water to a stranger," she whispered. "That is not the act of someone who has stopped expecting the best." Her words sank deep, breaking through defenses he hadn't realized were still standing. He met her eyes, galaxies swirling, and for the first time since this began, he let himself breathe. They stayed like that for a while, the desert quiet around them. Eventually, Serena leaned back, her body swaying slightly from fatigue. John noticed, and instinctively moved closer. "You need a rest too," he said. Her lips curved faintly. "I will if you will." He chuckled. "Deal." They lay down in the sand, side by side, the stars blazing overhead. The desert air bit cold against his skin, but her presence beside him radiated warmth. For a long time, neither spoke. John's thoughts spun with questions, fears, the weight of what his life had become in less than a day. But slowly, against the rhythm of her breathing, the storm inside him eased. His eyes closed, and for the first time since he'd found her in the desert, sleep pulled him under. He woke at dawn to the sound of wind brushing across the dunes. His chest rose easily, no pain, just the steady hum of that alien energy. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Serena was already awake, standing at the edge of the ravine. Her blonde hair caught the sunrise, glowing like fire. She was watching the horizon with a stillness that carried both beauty and dread. "See something?" he asked, voice groggy. She turned, her expression guarded. "Not yet, but I feel them. The hunters will not stop. We must move before they find us again." John stretched, sore but alive. "Any idea where we're going?" She hesitated. "Your world has water, hidden beneath the ground. Wells, rivers, reservoirs. They are life to us. If I can reach one, I can heal fully. Then we can fight, not just run." John slung his bag over his shoulder, pipe in hand. "Closest well is a town about 20 miles east. If we're lucky, we can get there before anyone else notices the wreck back there." Her gaze softened. "Lucky or stubborn?" He smiled faintly. "Guess we'll find out." They climbed out of the ravine together, footprints marking the sand behind them. For the first time, John didn't feel like he was dragging her along. They moved side by side, two lives bound by a single pulse, facing a horizon that promised danger and maybe, just maybe, something more. And in that fragile quiet of the morning, with the desert stretching endless before them, John realized this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about trust, about connection, about holding on to something impossible, no matter the cost. The sun was high when John first felt it, the vibration under the sand, faint but growing stronger, like a drumbeat buried in the earth. He stopped mid-stride, pipe in hand, eyes narrowing against the blinding horizon. Serena froze too. Her gaze turned sharp, her pupils contracting until her eyes shimmered with light. "They found us." The words chilled him more than the desert night ever could. Before he could respond, the air above the dunes shimmered. Three figures emerged from the heat mirage, tall and metallic, their limbs bending with a mechanical grace. Their armor gleamed silver black, plates shifting like liquid metal. Instead of faces, they bore obsidian masks etched with runes that pulsed with dark red light. "Hunters." John felt his throat tighten. "Guess they don't knock." Serena's glow flared brighter, her hair lifting as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. "Stay behind me," she ordered. "Not a chance." John gripped the pipe tighter. His heart raced, but the pulse of blue light in his veins steadied him. It was as if her presence inside him had sharpened his senses, feeding courage into his bones. The hunters advanced, each step crushing the sand beneath them. Their movements were deliberate, predatory, as if the outcome were already decided. Then, without warning, one of them raised an arm. A lance of crimson energy tore across the dune, exploding in a spray of sand where John had stood a second earlier. He threw himself aside, coughing, ears ringing. "Run!" Serena shouted. But John didn't. Not this time. He charged, swinging the pipe with all the strength the desert had left him. The metal cracked against the hunter's arm, jarring him to the core, but instead of breaking, the alien armor absorbed the blow, rippling like water before solidifying again. The hunter backhanded him, sending him sprawling into the sand. Pain shot through his ribs. Serena's scream split the air. Blue light surged from her body, arcing across the sky like lightning. She raised her arms, and the sand beneath the hunters erupted, twisting into jagged glassy shards that tore upward like spears. One hunter staggered, impaled through the chest, its runes flickering violently. But the others kept advancing. John staggered his feet, spitting blood. He could feel her energy pulsing in his veins again, stronger this time, demanding he use it. His vision shimmered, the world outlined in glowing threads of light, as if the desert itself were alive. He gritted his teeth. All right, let's see what this bond can really do. As another hunter lunged, John raised his hand instinctively. Blue fire leapt from his palm, slamming into the creature's chest with a thunderous crack. The armor dented, glowing red against the blast. The hunter reeled back, its mask shattering in fragments that dissolved into the air. John stared at his hand, disbelief flooding him. Holy! Another beam cut the word short, grazing the ground inches from him. Heat seared his cheek. Serena grabbed his arm, pulling him close. Her eyes blazed with urgency. You can channel me, but only if you trust it. If you fight it, you will burn. Trust. It had been a word he avoided his whole life. But here, in the middle of the desert, with death closing in, there was no time for hesitation. I trust you, he said hoarsely, and he meant it. The bond flared. Their lights intertwined, blue and gold twisting together until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Power surged through them both, crackling across the sand like a living storm. Together, they turned. The remaining hunters charged, weapons glowing. John raised his hands, channeling raw force, while Serena's voice rang out in a language older than the desert itself. Beams of crimson met waves of blue, colliding with deafening explosions that shook the dunes apart. Sand erupted into firestorms. Shards of glass whirled through the air. One hunter lunged for Serena, blade forming from its arm. John intercepted, pipe glowing like molten steel in his hands. He swung with everything he had, and this time the weapon didn't bounce. It cut, slicing through the hunter's chest plate with a scream of tearing metal. The creature staggered, collapsing in a cloud of smoke and ash. But victory came at a price. The third hunter struck Serena across the back with a searing beam. She cried out, stumbling forward. Her glow faltered, dimming as smoke rose from her skin. No, John roared. Rage and fear ignited inside him. He unleashed everything. The desert itself seemed to answer, the air splitting, the ground trembling, a torrent of energy blasting from his chest. The last hunter disintegrated in a burst of blue fire, its runes flickering out like dying embers. Silence crashed down. John fell to his knees, chest heaving, the pipe clattering beside him. His vision blurred, stars exploding behind his eyes. The blue glow dimmed in his veins until it was just a faint flicker. Serena collapsed beside him. Her breath was shallow, her golden hair matted with blood where the beam had struck. Her glow was faint now, almost extinguished. John crawled to her side, panic clawing at his throat. Hey, stay with me. Her lips parted, a weak smile ghosting across her face. You trusted me. Yeah, well, don't make me regret it. His hands shook as he tried to stop the bleeding, though he had no idea if her body even healed the same way. Come on, you can't quit on me now. Her fingers brushed his cheek, leaving faint streaks of light. You are stronger than you believe, John Miller. But strength always has a cost. Her hand fell limp. John froze, heart pounding. Her glow flickered once, twice, then dimmed almost to nothing. No, don't you dare. His voice broke, raw with desperation. He pressed his forehead to hers, the desert wind howling around them. You gave me your life, Serena. I'm not letting you take it back. And then, faintly, he felt it. A pulse. Weak but alive. She wasn't gone. Not yet. But she was fading, and if he didn't find water soon, she would be. John lifted her into his arms, staggering to his feet. The desert stretched endless around them, unforgiving. But his jaw set hard, his chest still glowing faintly with borrowed light. He would carry her as far as it took. Because this bond wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about love, and love was worth the fight. The desert was quiet again. No firestorms, no glowing runes, no hunters. Just silence. The kind of silence that presses on your ears until you hear only the pounding of your own blood. John stumbled through the dunes, Serena cradled against his chest. Her head rested against his shoulder, hair brushing his cheek. Every step felt like dragging his body through quicksand, but he kept moving. He had to. The battle had left scars on the landscape, blackened craters, shattered glass, spires jutting from the earth like broken teeth. The sun blazed high overhead, merciless, but the heat didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was the faint, flickering pulse he felt every time her chest rose. "You're not dying on me," he muttered hoarsely. "Not after all this." Her eyelids fluttered, half opening, revealing a dim glow that once blazed with fierce light. "John." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Save your strength," he said quickly. His throat burned from thirst, but he swallowed it down. "We'll find water. We'll make it. Just don't stop fighting, okay?" Her lips curved weakly. "Always fighting." Then she slipped back into unconsciousness. John's heart twisted, but he didn't let his legs stop. Each dune looked the same, endless waves of burning gold stretching to infinity. He didn't know how far he'd carried her, or how many hours had bled away since the hunters fell. All he knew was that his strength was running thin. His boots dragged through the sand. His arms trembled. Serena's weight was light, but the exhaustion made her feel heavier than stone. He nearly collapsed more than once, catching himself with sheer stubbornness. When the sun began to dip, shadows crawling long across the desert, he finally saw it, a dark line on the horizon. He blinked, nearly convinced it was another mirage. But as he drew closer, the shimmer grew clearer. An old water tank, half collapsed, rust eating through its sides, perched beside the skeleton of a long-abandoned gas station. John laughed, the sound breaking into a ragged cough. "You've got to be kidding me." He pushed forward, stumbling across cracked pavement, the remnants of a highway long swallowed by sand. The gas station was nothing but a hollow shell, roof caved in, walls crumbling, graffiti baked pale by years of sun. But the tank still held liquid, glinting faintly inside the rusted seams. He lowered Serena gently onto the ground, brushing her hair from her face. "Stay with me, just a little longer." Climbing the tank nearly broke him. His arms screamed in protest, his body quaking, but he forced himself up, teeth gritted. At the top, he smashed a pipe against the metal until it cracked, letting a thin stream of water spill down the side. He dropped to his knees, cupped his hands, and brought the liquid to her lips. "Drink. Please drink." At first, nothing. Her lips were still, her breathing shallow. Then movement. Her mouth parted slightly. She swallowed. A glow sparked faintly in her skin, like embers catching in the dark. John's chest collapsed in relief. He gave her more, drop by drop, until the glow spread further, lighting her veins again. Her eyelids fluttered, and she looked up at him, weary but alive. "You found water," she whispered. He let out a broken laugh. "Yeah, almost killed me, but I did." Her hand trembled as it reached for his cheek. The contact was warm again, no longer fading. "You saved me. Don't sound so surprised." He tried to grin, but it came out shaky. She studied him for a long moment, her glow flickering brighter as strength returned. "In my culture," she murmured, voice soft but steady, "to give water is to give life. To share it is to bind fates. You bound us, John Miller." His throat tightened. He remembered her words from the beginning, the shock in her voice when he had first given her water under the burning sun. Back then, he hadn't understood. Now, it hit with full force. This wasn't just survival. It was a vow, sealed by something older than either of them. "I didn't do it for some tradition," he said quietly, eyes locked on hers. "I did it because I couldn't stand to lose you." For a moment, silence again. But this silence wasn't empty. It was full of meaning, of connection, of something neither of them could deny anymore. Serena's lips curved faintly. "Then perhaps we're not so different, you and I." The desert wind swept around them, carrying sand across the broken highway, but neither of them moved. The ruins of the gas station framed them like a forgotten relic of a world long gone. John finally sat beside her, exhaustion crushing him, but he didn't care. He was alive. She was alive. And that was enough. Above them, the sky bled into twilight, the first stars piercing the violet haze. For the first time since the hunters appeared, John allowed himself to breathe. The danger wasn't gone. He knew that. If they found her once, they could find her again. But for now, there was peace, a fragile, precious peace. And peace, even for a moment, felt like victory. Night draped the desert in velvet silence. The stars were brighter here than John had ever seen back in the city. Uncountable pinpricks of light scattered across the black canvas, sharp enough to pierce the soul. He sat with his back against the half-collapsed wall of the ruined gas station, Serena resting beside him. The faint glow from her skin pulsed like a living heartbeat, washing over the cracked pavement with silver blue light. For the first time since the chaos began, there was no sound of hunters, no hum of alien weapons, no explosion ready to tear the ground apart. Just the low whisper of the wind sliding over the dunes. John's body ached in every place it could ache. His knuckles were raw, his ribs bruised, his throat dry as paper. But the exhaustion didn't matter. His mind was still replaying everything. Every strike, every choice, every insane second where he could have run but didn't. And always, the moment where he had thought he'd lose her. That was the memory that hit hardest. "You keep staring at me," Serena murmured, eyes half closed. Her voice carried the smooth tone of someone balancing between weariness and comfort. John smiled faintly, making sure you're still breathing. Her lips curved in a small smile. "I am. Because of you." He shook his head. "No, you're tougher than you give yourself credit for. I just held on." "You did more than hold on," she said softly, turning her head to meet his gaze. Her eyes shimmered like distant galaxies. "You stood when no one else would. That is not holding on. That is becoming part of my story." Her words lingered in the air, heavy and luminous. John rubbed his palms together, unsure how to respond. "I don't know about stories. I just know I couldn't walk away." "You don't understand," Serena whispered. "Where I come from, my people do not expect others to fight for us. Not without gain. To fight without reward, to risk without promise, it is rare. Sacred." She leaned closer, her glow brushing against his arm. "You changed what I believed about your kind." John's throat tightened. He wanted to joke, to lighten the moment, but he couldn't. Not when her words carried so much weight. "Maybe," he said quietly, "that's all humans are good at, surprising people. Sometimes even ourselves." A silence followed, not empty, but thoughtful. The desert night wrapped around them like a cocoon. Finally, Serena broke it. "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Helping me. Choosing me." Her voice was steady, but her eyes flickered with a shadow of doubt. John blinked at her, then let out a small laugh. Tired, incredulous, but real. "After everything, after nearly getting vaporized by alien bounty hunters, after carrying you half dead across this wasteland, after bleeding and breaking just to keep us alive. Do I regret it?" He shook his head firmly. "No, not for a second." Her breath caught, her expression softening into something almost fragile. "But," he added, leaning forward slightly, "I do regret one thing." She tilted her head. "What is it?" "That I didn't meet you sooner." The words slipped out before he could second-guess them. They hung in the night air, honest and raw. For a moment, Serena said nothing. Her glow brightened, her hair shimmering like woven gold under starlight. Then she reached for his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, cool and warm at the same time. "Where I come from," she whispered, "time is not counted in days, but in bonds. A moment can be greater than a lifetime, if it is true." Her eyes searched his, steady and unwavering. "This moment with you is greater than many lifetimes." John's chest tightened, but it wasn't pain. It was something deeper, something he hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. The desert stretched endless around them, but in that ruined station, in the quiet of starlight and sand, the universe felt small enough to fit between their joined hands. They sat in silence for a long while, speaking only through touch, through the steady rhythm of breath, through the comfort of knowing the other was there. But eventually, reality crept back in. "They'll come again, won't they?" John asked, voice low. "Yes." Serena didn't hesitate. "My hunters will not stop. I am more than just prey to them. I am proof of something they fear. If I live, it means their control weakens." John exhaled, running a hand through his sweat-matted hair. "Figures. Never simple." She squeezed his hand gently. "You could still walk away. Leave me to fate. They might spare you if I am alone." He turned to her sharply. "Don't say that. Don't ever say that. I'm not leaving you." Her gaze softened, the shadow of a smile ghosting her lips. "I know, but I had to ask, to see if your choice still held." "It does," John said firmly. It always will. The glow in her skin pulsed, stronger now, renewed by water and rest. She leaned closer, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. Then whatever comes, we face it together. The desert night deepened, the air cooling, the stars sharpening like diamonds. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, a lonely sound swallowed by the dunes. John wrapped an arm around Serena, pulling her gently closer. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. More hunters, more battles, more impossible choices. But for tonight, he knew one thing with absolute clarity. They weren't alone anymore. And sometimes, that was enough to change everything. The desert was not the same when the sun rose again. Dawn spilled across the horizon, washing the dunes in crimson and gold. The ruins of the gas station stood silent behind them, a monument to the night that had nearly taken everything. John adjusted the strap of his backpack, the canteen swinging against his side. Serena walked beside him, her glow muted by the rising sun, but still visible if you looked closely enough, like a secret only he could see. They didn't speak for the first mile. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was the silence of people who didn't need words to know what the other was thinking. Finally, Serena broke it. Your world is vast, she said softly, scanning the endless desert. It feels untouched, wild, not like the planets I knew. Here, survival feels honest. John smirked. That's one way to describe Arizona. She tilted her head, not catching the humor, then smiled faintly when she realized it was his way of easing tension. You hide your fears behind words, she said. Maybe. He glanced at her. But with you I don't have to hide much. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment longer, her expression unreadable but soft. They crested a dune, and in the distance, civilization appeared, a faint highway cutting across the desert, with tiny dots of cars glinting in the sun. Beyond that, the hazy silhouette of a town. John exhaled slowly. There. Food, water, answers maybe. If anyone asks, we'll figure out a story. Serena frowned slightly. And when your people see me? He hesitated. That might be harder. Her hand brushed against his, tentative at first, then steady. Then let them look. Let them fear. I'm not here for them. Her voice firmed, certain. I am here because of you. Something stirred in his chest, equal parts fear and pride. He squeezed her hand once before letting it go. The closer they came to the road, the more John realized the truth. Life would never be simple again. Serena wasn't just a lost traveler. She was hunted, a symbol of something much larger than either of them could yet understand. He didn't know what her presence meant for Earth, or for humanity, but he knew what it meant for him. She had changed the shape of his world, and he would fight like hell to keep her safe. At the roadside, they stopped. A beat-up pickup truck rattled past, the driver glancing at them before vanishing in a cloud of dust. Serena looked at John. This is only the beginning, isn't it? He nodded slowly. Yeah, it is. They stood in silence again, the sun climbing higher, the day sharpening around them. For a moment, John closed his eyes and remembered that first instant. Her collapsed in the sand, whispering one word, water. That single choice had rewritten both their fates. Now, with the road stretching ahead and the universe waiting just beyond the horizon, he felt something he hadn't in years. Hope. Serena slipped her fingers into his. Where you go, I will follow. Until the end. He squeezed back, firm, resolute. Then let's see where this road takes us. Together, they stepped forward. The desert wind carried away their footprints almost immediately, but the bond they carried was indelible, etched not in sand, but in something stronger than time. And though John couldn't see it, high above, far beyond the clouds, other eyes were watching. Some filled with fear, some with awe, and some with the burning certainty that nothing would ever be the same again. Because one man had given water to a dying princess beneath the Arizona sun, and in doing so, had rewritten the future. If you've ever believed in impossible love, if you've ever rooted for two souls from different worlds to find each other against all odds, thank you for walking this journey with John and Serena. What did you feel reading their story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you want more tales of forbidden bonds, desperate choices, and love that defies the stars, subscribe. There are so many more stories waiting.